but for now, Zephyr and Josh, could you talk a little bit about your journey together?
Well, I saw Gasland, and I found it several years before I met Josh, and it really, really affected me and led me to learning a lot more about fracking, which I suspect is something that was similar for many of you. And then a couple of years ago, when I was running for governor, I sought him out, and he was immediately incredibly supportive. I actually, he was so busy putting on a show, putting together the play.
Yeah, it's called Solutions Grassroots.
Yeah, right, the play inside it. So I came to the end of a rehearsal at 11:30 at night, but I was determined to meet him.
Yeah, that was pretty astonishing. I actually had heard of Zephyr from a number of people, Bill McKibben being one, and some other people who were fighting the Keystone XL pipeline. And I was sort of half paying attention and totally wrapped up in both finishing this film, or working on this film, and making this ginormous interactive theater piece that was teaching people about renewable energy. And Duncan Mizell from 350.org was yelling in my ear, "Zephyr Teachout! Zephyr Teachout!" And I thought it was a new band that I'd never heard of, and I should put it on at the party that we were at. I was like, okay, that sounds great, you know? And like, totally not knowing what the hell I was talking about. And then I got a wonderful email from Zephyr saying, "Oh, this is so fascinating." And she shows up at my house. And all the actors were there. There was 25 actors. And here's the person running for governor shows up at our rehearsal space. I thought, well, this is unusual. This has never happened before. I said, actors, meet the Zephyr Teachout. She's running for governor in New York. She decided that we were important enough to show up at our house. So, you know, we had a series of conversations. I personally was worried about, because we hadn't achieved the fracking ban yet, I was worried about Governor Cuomo kind of getting angry at me if I was going to endorse Zephyr. But I was so compelled, and I was so enthralled and excited by what she was saying and the candidacy for governor that I felt this. I don't care what happens. I have to go out there and say this is really important in New York. You have to elect Zephyr Teachout. And so I still feel the same way. I feel the way about her running for Congress as if she were to run for mayor or for president or governor or anything else. So that was an amazing experience of meeting you and seeing you. What really sold me was seeing you speak and interact with constituents in upstate New York at a fundraiser that they were having in the Upper Delaware River. And I thought, this person is the real deal. This is amazing. This is a true leader, the person that we need in New York.
Yeah. Since then, Josh and I have become friends. We haven't seen each other as much recently, but one of the more beautiful stories that he often returns to, and I'm going to get it wrong, but to correct it, is that in ancient Greece, the place of democracy and the place of theater were right next to each other, the birthplace. And that it's incredibly important to bring art into our politics and politics into our art, because both are so much stronger with that.
Okay. Question, shall we take it?
Well, I remember when you were just finishing the film because, but I guess, how many months? 6 months ago, last year's film festival, Josh came and actually gave the keynote speech, the very opening speech of the festival. And he was just then finishing the film. And he wasn't sure if he was going to get into Sundance. I knew he would. But he was not sure, and he was telling me about this film that took him all over the world, literally, as you've seen. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, you know, when you were starting to make the film, did you know that it was going to take you into all those different points in the world? And if not, how did that evolve? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, as you probably understand from watching it, this film has been kind of going on in the background since the very beginning of making Gasland and Gasland Part 2. And you know, the climate question is much more difficult in a lot of ways than even the fracking issue, because it's everywhere, it's all of us, it's everything, and we're in much, much worse shape, you know. So the sense of, oh my God, how do I even begin to do this, because it's so upsetting. And you ricochet between denial and despair, back and forth. Tony Ingraffia, I don't know if you know who he is, he's a Cornell professor. He's one of the most instrumental people in terms of the fracking question. He said, Josh, you have to do this. You have to find a way to make a film about the climate that people want to watch. Because there's a lot of material about the climate that people just want to tune out. And I thought the only way to do that was to go into the emotional roller coaster of how do you encounter this question and how difficult it is. And really when you put an active question into the universe, it somehow tends to direct where you're going to go. I find a lot of films, unfortunately, documentary films, are essays, and they know exactly what they were going to say before they started the movie. And you get that feeling the minute you walk into the movie theater. It's like, uh-oh, yes, we're going to watch 90 minutes of the same sentence. And that's not true of my films. If I don't have a question that I don't know the answer to, why make it? So I put the question out there, and then all of a sudden I sat next to somebody who was from Amazon Watch, and they were like, well, next month we're going to the Amazon to investigate these oil spills. And I was like, hey, can I go? And they were like, you want to go? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, sure. Or and then we went to the Amazon. And, there was, Lee had noticed online that there were these Pacific climate warriors that were going to blockade coal ships with canoes. And I thought, oh God, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to go. I got to figure out if I can go to that, thinking it was months in the future. And it turns out it was 10 days later. So figuring out how to scramble and get a plane ticket to Australia and fly across the world, And the other thing there was to meet those Pacific climate warriors in Australia, so then I could figure out, can I go to their islands? Can I learn about what they're going through? But it's really the way it happened in the film. I mean, realizing that we could win against fracking in our backyards and lose everything we love to climate change. And that realization means that even though I had this overwhelming desire just to stay home and hang out in the woods and not talk to anybody ever again, you can't because the woods are collapsing, and you can't because New York City is being flooded by Hurricane Sandy, and you simply can't anymore do that and ignore the world. So thankfully, these people just emerged pretty much out of nowhere and said, yes, come and tell our stories. So I'm very, very grateful to those people. I think of this movie, as like the third part, as like Return of the Jedi, all trilogies, right, if you're of my generation, it's got to be Return of the Jedi. So these are the Jedi, these people who are so remarkable. Mika from Samoa, the amazing folks who spoke out in China at peril of their own civil liberties being suspended. The folks in the Amazon who are doing this for no money. These are the people who I felt like I needed to learn from, and I felt very